My hat! Alright, so now I'm actually going to work with bag 10. So in bag 10 we have the battery tie. That's really what we're doing here. We have the little battery nuts here. So I have these four. I'm going to be using 2 for this. And I believe they are all the same length. Here, let me just check. They appear to be the same length. I don't know why 4, maybe they break. That's a possibility. I never broke one on the 6.1, but it is a possibility. Never broke one on the buggy either. It's the same system. Now, you're going to have the 6mm screws. You're going to use 2 of the 6mm screws, and then you have 2 of these washers, 8mm washers, and that's it. So because these are threading into plastic, you don't have to worry about using thread lock or anything like that. Oops, I forgot the washer. So you're just putting the washer, and you're just going to run this here, and you're going to use this right in here, and you're just going to thread on. Now, thread it on first, just get it started. Once it's started, then you can go ahead and hold it here, press it there, and go ahead and tighten. Now these here, they are adjustable, so depending on your battery, you may slide it in, may slide it out. Not sure if you can see on the camera, but so you can slide it in, or it can slide out. So that depends on the shorty pack that you are running. You can always adjust it later, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and just place it out for now. And it's the same thing for the other side. So just go ahead and put the washer in. And then after that, go ahead and install this here. And you grab that little plastic nut. And you go ahead and just get it started. And then press it in. And then once you press it in, then you drive it all the way. So that's what we have here. Now, something that's going to be important here is where you place the mount. So the mounts here, as you can see, I cannot go back here because I'm doing the laydown transmission. So my battery cannot go over here. My battery will go forward. And I did this on purpose, and so the reason why is when I had the 6.1, man, it really like no tomorrow. There was pretty much nothing, well, yeah, not give it so much throttle, I guess I could have done. But now you have these here, and these, the long part goes down into one of these pegs. So for this one, I believe is an 8mm, 7mm. So you're going to use a 7mm driver. I'm just going to drive it in. And these you can adjust because the way you hold the battery is with these blue nuts that are there. And that's where you used to hold the battery. Now, something that you may want to consider is you may want to consider some wing nuts. And right here, that's about 5mm. That's how far down I drove it. So you really want to do all of the fine adjustments once you have the correct battery that you want. Now, on this truck here, I'm not sure if I want to use my regular shorty packs or if I'm going to buy some lower profile packs. So until I decide that, then I'll do the final adjustment. So right now I'm just leaving these at about 5mm in height, and this would just go down in here, although if you look at the image orientation, oh no, it does have it this way because this is the side that gets adjusted. So we'll go here for now, and then one of these nuts would just go here. And are these 7mm as well? They are 7mm. So you're going to use the 7mm nuts to go in here. Now, one of the things is this shoulder, so I didn't show you. So the shoulder on that little screw, that should be level with the battery. That's why you need the battery first to set it level, so that when this sits on top, it sits level on top of the battery. So that screw, imagine this is that screw head, that shoulder, and this is your battery. They should be level, so it should be flat. All right, the other thing that you have is you have these two little items. These are if you're running a fan or if you're not running a fan. So if you're not running a fan, you just use this plug. If you're running a fan, you use this here with the fan mount. I'm going to go ahead and mount this one, and maybe I'll install a fan later. But it just keys in here. And should just drop in. There we go. So it goes in there, you place the fan, so the motor would go here, you place the fan here, you drive the screw, and that is all. So for the fan mount, we actually have to go back to step 2, and step 2 shows the fan mount. So you're going to use a countersunk 10mm screw, which is this one right over here, and we're just going to flip the truck, place this in here, and we will be driving this one in. Again, this is if you plan on running the fan. I'm going to go ahead and install it. If I end up running the fan or not, it's not a big deal. I'm not really concerned about a gram or two. Again, if I were top-notch driver, sure, that'll make a difference for me. Not really. Not even close. Well, it won't matter. But that is it for this. So now the next step, we will be needing the 2 more washers, because now we will be mounting the motor. So to mount the motor, you will need the 8mm screws, which are these here. This one you can set off to the side. This one's a longer screw. That's for the fan. But I'm going to use these 8mm. And you're going to need a little bit of thread lock for these screws. I should put the washer on first. And I'm going to go ahead and mount the motor. So the motor that I'm going to be using, you can use whatever motor, 17.5, 13.5, whatever the rules are. Our track happens to be open because, well, there just aren't enough short course trucks out there. So I'm going to be running this 7.5 Actinium V3 motor by Team Powers. This is a motor that I actually ran the 6.1. I like the way it ran. And then I just kept it. And I'm glad I kept it, so now I can use it here. And let's see, since my electronics are going to be up here, I'm going to orient this so I have shorter wires. And I'm going to go ahead and attach the rear one first. Let me go ahead and screw the rear portion of the motor. Now, I'm not going to tighten it fully, just going to leave it here. I still don't know what pinion I'm going to be using in the end, so I'm actually just going to put a pinion that I have here. I have a few. Run it, temp the truck, just take the temperature of the motor, and then see how everything runs. And then I'll probably decide whether to keep that pinion, change the pinion. I cannot remember, and I don't have my notes from the 6.1 to make a good decision as to what type of gear. But I figure if I go with this 19 tooth, if I gear low, it'll be better than if I gear too high right off the start, and then I can just start climbing up. Since I do have several pinions. Now the pinion, see, I think this mounts just like the Traxxas do in many other vehicles. Well, even the many of the touring cars. You're going to mount this with the pressure screw on the outside. So just put that little set screw out on the outside. Need to loosen it a little more. There we go. And there was already some thread lock compound on it. And once it's somewhat lined up, go ahead and tighten that one. What I'm doing is I'm actually holding the gear with this finger. That way it doesn't slide out. As soon as you start tightening, sometimes the gear will want to slide out. But I want it to be lined up. So now the teeth here are lined up with these teeth. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and set the mesh. Now, I am just going to set it by eyeing it and just looking at it and feeling it. Actually, that feels good. And then holding the motor. Something you can do, just grab a piece of paper, binder paper, slide it in between the teeth, and that'll generally give you the mesh that you want. But I'm going to tighten the bottom screw first. And when I'm setting the mesh, I want just a slight amount of play between the gears. You can't hear it here between the gears, but it's just a very slight play. If it's too loose, there won't be enough meat here. The teeth, there won't be enough of them. So what will end up happening is it'll just destroy the teeth. And if it's too tight, it will melt your spur and destroy your teeth. So mesh is very important, but that is it. So the motor's mounted, it's tight. I'm going to go ahead and grab the body clips. I do not have the body. Maybe I'll finish it and just have it as a separate video and then show you the final product. We'll see, but I'm not planning as of now of making it part of this build. But it's a pretty nice body, which I have. It's the Gen 1 Raptor. Just have to paint it up, well, cut everything, trim, paint it. But here we go. So we have these bits of the electronics here. Now I'm going to need my ESC into my receiver. My receiver is going to go on that side. My ESC is going to go on this side. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you clean the surface with alcohol. So grab something that you haven't used with grease. Now this one I've used only with alcohol. That's a bit too much alcohol. And just little circular motions. Just clean that surface area. And one of the nice things about this here is if you want your electronics, you could mount them further up. I'm going to mount them on that plate. That's where I want them. Now for my receiver, I'm going to use this Futaba receiver. And the Futaba receiver, I'm going to mount this way and then just run the antenna wire over here. I could mount it this way, but I'd rather mount it this other way. Let's see, so my receiver will go right here. And I'm trying to mount it, not perfectly in the center, but not toward the outside. I want my weight to be closer to the center line. Now as far as ESC, I'm going to be using this Maclan ESC. And the reason why I'm using this Maclan ESC is because I've heard people say Maclan as well. But either way, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'll talk to the people at work here. I have no idea. If you call certain hobby shops, they'll say Maclan. Some people say Maclan. That's one of the differences between Spanish and English. Spanish would actually have a little stress mark, and then you would know where the stress is. I mean, some words. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I'm using this ESC, and the reason why I'm using this ESC is because, well, it was a good deal. I'm not saying this is better. I do like Hobbywig, but this ESC I bought for maybe $160 probably. It's discontinued now. It's the MCL2003. Now, if you look at MSRP, never look at MSRP. MSRP says $286. Do not pay $286 US for this. If somebody tries selling it to you because that's the price on here, they're ripping you off. When these things were brand new and they were on sale, you could buy them at different places for about $200. So do not pay $286. As of this video, this model is discontinued. Everybody kind of sold everything that they had. You could have gotten these about 6 months ago for about $160 brand new, just because they were discontinued. Keep in mind that when it comes to electronics for RCs, people go for the latest and the greatest many times. So once something is discontinued or it's an older model, you can get it for a very low price. So do not pay for retail. But for my purposes, this works. Why? Because it was inexpensive. It has everything I need. It does have Bluetooth connectivity. Read all the warning labels. That's something very important here. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to set this up. There's the fan. I may connect it at some later point. But right now I just want to go through the soldering with you. But here we go. So we have the wires. All right, so the wires are here. And I'm going to be placing this ESC. Well, I guess I could place it this way, but then my wires may be longer. No, this would be fine. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that same little rag with alcohol, still has alcohol, and just eliminate whatever greases, oils, wipe it clean. Now, once it's there, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need my just double stick tape. Just go ahead and cut a piece off. And when I'm cutting off of this roll, I try to cut enough so that I perforate this end of the tape, but I don't go into the next one. So half the time I end up tearing the tape off, which I'd rather do that than cut into the next section. And when you're applying this tape, make sure that it's not too cold. Room temperature is a good temperature. And if you're wondering what temperature is room temperature, it's the temperature of the room. The room is always room temperature. So that doesn't help you at all, now does it? But let's say, I don't know, 70, 75 degrees. Fahrenheit, can't remember, is that 16 Celsius, I believe. But here we go, so this will go right in here. And the fan is actually for the ESC, so I'll leave the fan off for now. But that is it. Here are my wires. Now, one of the things that I need to make a note of is the positive and the negative. Now, something that I did not do that I should have done is I should have stuck the sensor wire in there, because I just realized the sensor wire connection goes in here. But, you know, not a big deal. I'll actually do the sensor wire after, because I have to get the sensor wire. So the sensor wire goes under there. I'm going to have to pop one of these two off. So right now I'm just going to worry about soldering. So we have these wires right in here, and you have to keep in mind which one's A, B, C. Now really quick, this one here is positive, and you know that because of that red shrink wrap. Now the question is, which one is negative? Do not assume negative is the last one, because this is actually C. And I did not show you on the ESC before I did this, but negative is actually this other center one. So it begins with A, negative, B, positive, and then C. So if you're using one of these Maclan ESCs, think of that. This I will eventually just tape to there. And these are the wires that we want right now. And I think I'm actually going to swap this, turn this around. So let's go ahead and do that. Should have done this before I taped it. Well, at least you know I did a very good tape job. I can stick a flathead screwdriver under there. All right, the tape just stuck to the plate. That's fine. I'm going to go here. Oh, so really quick, that's where the letters are. A, negative, B, positive, C. And I'm going to tape it this way. And the reason why is so I can try to keep short wires. That's the reason why. All right. So here we go. So these are the wires that I'm interested in right now. So I'm going to have to figure out where to mount this later. And the wires, I do not want them to be excessively long, but I do want them to be about the same length. So when I cut these wires, I'm going to look at the longest wire that I need, and that's where I'm going to start doing all of my cuts. Now for this, you can use your electrical pliers, which I have them somewhere. Actually, I just saw them. But you can also use just snips, and then you can snip this off. I like the other one. Oh, that was kind of loud. So let me go ahead and use these other ones. These are the correct ones. It's easier to cut the wire, and I'm going to cut it all same length. Now, another ESC that you could have gone with is the Hobbywig XR10 Elite. That's a similar ESC to this one, and that is a current production ESC, which again is Bluetooth enabled, which is great. You just download the app, and you don't need a Bluetooth box or anything for it. That's what I like about that one. That's what I'm running on in my buggy. So if you've seen some of my other videos, my Techno buggy, that's the ESC that I have in that buggy. So we have C, which is the last one. C, that'll work here. I'll actually use these other pliers just to get it started. And I'll solder on. There should be plenty of solder for this to have a good solder. And just waiting for this to warm up. As soon as it warms up, there we go. Now the trouble is I need to apply just a little more solder. So let me try to get some help. And let's see. Let's see if this physical helping hand can put the solder just above, just further up, there, right about there. And it'll take a while. Alright, it's warming up. And just a little more solder. That's it. That's it. That's it. Alright, that's cooled off. There is some slack in the wire, so don't worry about it. You always want a little bit of slack on the wire. And the reason why is when you get a lot of current, the wire will actually stretch. Alright, actually I can continue the same pattern, and then A will be the only one that will be the other way, possibly. We'll see. So let me go ahead and grab this, and let's go the other way. Let's see this time if my external helping hand, my third hand here, doesn't put too much solder this time. Oh, here, one moment. Get this over here. And we'll do that. Let me get this thing warmed up. And I really need to clean the tip of the soldering gun. But here, so no solder yet, no solder yet, no solder yet. And now I need the solder. Now, right now. A little more solder. More. Just stick it in there. There, stop. And we are good. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and check. There's a variety of things you want to check. One, you want to check that you don't have little wires just arcing. But that is it. So now we need A. And once we have A, that is good. So I can solder it this way, or I could solder it the same way as the other ones. Yeah, I could solder it the same way as the other ones, just so everything looks neat. I think it would look better this way, and then I can just tie them together. So let me go ahead and do that. Although it would be, let me use these pliers instead. I think it would be easier to solder if I did it the other way. But here we go. So I'm going to need some solder shortly. Now the terminals that I am going to be using, I'm not going to solder them in this video, but they're going to be the low profile terminals. And the reason why is I do have a low profile battery. Let's see if my soldering hand applies some solder. Let's see. Okay, get the solder close. And alright, so my soldering hand needs to put the solder right in there. Right between the wire and the terminal. Between the wire and the terminal, not the two terminals. Right in there. And so if you're into RC and you have access to your little nephew can be your helping hand, as you can see here. Alright, so I'm waiting. Alright, a little more. Just push the solder in. And that's good. Alright, so now I'm just checking, making sure this is soldered properly. It looks like it is soldered correctly. So I am good to go. And that is it. So electronics are in the truck. All I have to do now is attach the antenna tube. And the antenna tube is just this little tube here. And to be honest, I have shorter ones, but let me just show you what you will do. You would just stick it in here. I'm actually going to use a shorter one. Place it, there's a little tiny groove, so run the wire in there and then set the tube. Let me do it closer to the camera. So if you see this here, you're just going to run it. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. I can. And you're just going to stick your antenna tube in there. It should push the wire in through there. And then you should have another one of these little set screws. Then you just stick it in that little hole so that the tube doesn't come out. And then that is it. So as far as this build now, I'm going to say this is complete. As far as this, I'm just going to do a few buttoning things. So I'm actually going to finish this on the next video and then put the wheels and tires on. Thank you so much for watching.